Hello to all of you, the resilient souls who've faced your darkest days and are still standing here today, ready to seek a new path. I want to start with a direct question. Have you ever felt trapped in the crosshairs of someone whose hatred felt like a freezing wind, constantly blowing through your life, trying to snuff out every bit of light you have? I've been there. I've felt the sting of their words, their looks, their actions, a narcissist's poison that makes you question whether you did something to deserve it. But today I want you to pause and hear this. Their hatred is not a sign of strength. It's not proof that they are superior to you, that they have power over you, or that they define your worth. No. A narcissist's hatred is a confession, a raw, undeniable admission of their own weakness. And once you truly see that, everything begins to shift. You'll no longer view them as something to fear, but as someone desperately trying to hide the cracks within themselves. I'm here to walk this journey with you, a journey that doesn't just expose the truth about them, but helps you uncover the power you've always had, even when they tried to make you believe you were powerless. By the end of this talk, you won't just see their weakness clearly. You'll know how to use that knowledge to rise, to move beyond them, and to live a life they can never touch. So, stay with me. We begin right now. And if you want to continue this journey with me, hit that subscribe button. There's so much more we'll discover together. A narcissist's hatred isn't a simple emotion. It's not like the fleeting annoyance when someone irritates you, or the kind of anger that flares up and then fades away after a few minutes. No, this is something deeper, more persistent, and far more toxic. When they hate you, it's not just because they don't like what you say or do. They hate who you are, your essence, your very existence. And while that might sound terrifying, I want you to look at it from a different angle. That hatred says nothing about you, it says everything about them. A strong, confident, emotionally stable person doesn't waste time, energy, or mental space despising others. They don't need to tear someone down to feel valuable. But narcissists are different. They need hatred like they need air to breathe, not because they are powerful, but because they are weak. They can't stand on their own without someone to push down, someone to blame, someone to absorb the chaos of emotions they can't manage themselves. Their hatred didn't start with you. It comes from old wounds, wounds they've never faced, never healed. Maybe they were hurt, rejected, abandoned. I don't know, and you don't need to. What matters is that they chose to live with those wounds by turning them into weapons, and you just happened to be the nearest target. They don't hate you because you're hateful. They hate you because you represent everything they'll never be, a person who can live authentically, who can heal, who can be strong without destroying others. The truth is, when they hurl venom at you, when they try to tear you down, when they mock your pain, it's not power, it's desperation. It's a cry for help from someone who doesn't know how to stand on their own. They need you to be the enemy so they can feel like they still exist, so they don't have to face the emptiness inside. A healthy soul doesn't need to do that. A truly strong person doesn't need to prove anything by breaking someone else, but they do, and that, more than anything, reveals how weak they truly are. Because if they were really as strong as they want you to believe, then why are they so focused on you? Why can't they let go? Why can't they move on and live their own life? The answer is simple. They can't. They don't have the strength. Hatred is their last life raft. And once you realize that, you'll see that they're not a threat. There's someone who's drowning, and they're trying to pull you under with them. But here's the bottom line. You don't have to drown with them. You don't have to be part of that tragic story. Their hatred is a silent confession. They're weak, they're helpless, and they can't face themselves. And once you truly understand that, you'll start to see them through different eyes. Not with fear, not with anger, but with clarity. They have no control over you, because they don't even have control over themselves. Now, we've seen what a narcissist's hatred truly is, a confession of their weakness, a clear sign that they are not as strong as they want you to believe. But I don't want to stop there. I want you to go deeper with me, deeper into what's really behind the mask they wear, the mask they use to hide the truth, that they are not powerful, not superior, and certainly not as intimidating as they try to appear. and a deep desperation they'll never admit, not even to themselves. Let's begin with a simple but important question. If they're truly strong, if they're truly confident, if they're really in control like they want you to believe, then why do they need you to absorb their emotions? Think about that for a second. A strong person, someone emotionally grounded and secure within themselves, doesn't need to spend time, energy, or mental space despising others. They don't need to bring someone down to feel tall. They don't need to cling to hatred as a way to assert their existence. But narcissists do. They need it more than anything, not because they're strong, but because they're too weak to stand on their own without stepping on someone else. Look at their behavior. They can't let you go. They can't forget you. They can't move on and live their own life without keeping you in their line of fire. Why? Because hatred is the only thing holding them together. If they stop hating you, if they stop focusing on hurting you, if they stop trying to tear you down, they'll be forced to face a truth they cannot bear, that they have nothing. No inner strength, no capacity to heal, no ability to live a meaningful life without destroying someone else. Hatred isn't their choice because they enjoy it. It's their choice because they have no other option. They're trapped in their own emotions and they don't know how to escape. A truly strong person can choose to let go. They can move forward. They can live without clinging to the past, without clinging to others, without clinging to bitterness. But a narcissist can't. Their hatred lingers. Not because they're determined or powerful, but because they don't have the strength to stop. They lack the courage to face themselves, to look at their old wounds, to admit that they were wrong, that they failed, that they've let their own weakness define them. So instead, they blame you. They make you the reason for everything wrong in their lives. But that's not strength. That's avoidance. That's cowardice. That's the desperation of someone who doesn't know how to stand on their own. Narcissists live in a world where they must always be the best, always be right, always be superior. But what's the reality? The truth is, they're not the best, they're not always right, and they are definitely not superior. And deep down they know it. That truth terrifies them. It makes them feel insecure. It makes them feel small. So what do? They don't face it. They're not strong enough for that. Instead, they turn to you. They make you the target, the enemy, the reason for their pain. They throw hatred at you not because you deserve it, but because they can't bear to look at themselves. This is a truth they don't want you to see. Their hatred is an invisible chain they use to keep you tied to their world, a world of chaos, pain, and emptiness. But they don't do it because they want you close in a meaningful way. They do it because they can't stand being alone with themselves. They need you to be the enemy so they can feel like they have purpose, power, and significance. But that's not the mark of a strong person. It's the mark of someone weak, someone who can't stand tall on their own, someone who needs others just to feel like they matter. A truly strong person doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. They don't need to shout to be heard. They don't need to tear others down to feel lifted up. But the narcissist does. They need all of that, desperately. And that desperation is the clearest sign of their weakness. Every time they throw hate your way, they are not the attacker, they are someone silently begging for salvation. But they don't know how to ask. They're not the predator, they are the prey, trapped in their own nightmare, trying to pull you down so they don't have to face it alone. In everyday life, they might seem confident, they might say all the right things, they might act like they're in control. But look closer. Look at their consistency, or rather, the lack of it. They can't maintain inner peace. They can't build healthy relationships without sabotaging them. They can't live without conflict, without drama, without someone to blame. Why? Because they don't have the strength to do so. They lack the ability to self-reflect, to self-correct, to grow. So they choose hatred, because hatred is easier. Hatred allows them to avoid responsibility, avoid truth, avoid themselves. A strong person can face failure and grow from it. A strong person can admit their mistakes and fix them. A strong person can live without constant validation, but a narcissist can't. They can't face failure. They blame you. They can't admit their faults. They claim you made them do it. They can't live without attention. They need you as an audience to their performance, even if it's a reluctant one. That's not strength. That's weakness dressed up in loud words and aggressive actions. Their hatred isn't just an emotion, it's a habit, a lifestyle, a way of existing they can't escape. They've built their entire identity around it. If you take the hatred away, what's left? Nothing. No identity, no purpose, no strength. They need hate to feel alive, to feel significant, to avoid feeling like the failure they fear they truly are. But do you see the irony here? That very hatred, the thing they think gives them power, is what makes them the weakest. It is their prison, their chains, the proof that they are not free. So why let them define you? Why carry their weakness like it's your burden? They have no control over you, not because you're stronger in a duel, but because you have something they never will, the power to choose a different way to live. They can't let go of you, but you can let go of them. They can't forget you, but you can forget them. They can't move on, but you can. And that is the greatest difference between you and them. You have the strength they never will, the strength to break free from the darkness they try to pull you into. A narcissist's hatred is not a sign of superiority, it's a sign of failure. They are not strong, they are weak. They are not powerful, they are powerless. They are not intimidating, they are pitiful. Every cruel word, every contemptuous act, every attempt to hurt you is a reminder that they cannot stand on their own. They need you, not because you're a threat, but because you're a tool they use to avoid facing themselves. But you don't have to be that tool. You don't have to be part of their tragic story. You can walk away, and when you do, you'll realize they never had control over you, because they never had control over themselves. We've seen the truth about them. Narcissistic hatred isn't strength, it's weakness. They may cling to that bitterness as if it's a permanent part of who they are, but you don't have to. You have a choice they will never have. You can choose freedom, and that is true power, the kind of power they will never understand, never reach, and never take from you. When they throw venomous words your way, when they try to tear you down, when they aim to make you feel small, don't get pulled in. Don't shrink in fear or respond with rage. Instead, stand tall and remind yourself, this isn't strength, this is their desperation showing. When you shift your perspective, you shift your response. You are no longer the target. You become the one who sees clearly, the one who understands that they hold no real power unless you hand it to them. Stop playing their game. You don't need to win against them. You don't need to prove anything to them. They lost long ago, the moment they chose hatred over healing, the moment they decided that destroying others was the only way to feel important. You don't have to fight that battle. You can walk away from it. Not in anger or bitterness, but in relief, in freedom. You don't have to carry their burden. That's theirs to carry, not yours. They are weak because they cannot love, not themselves, not others, not life without trying to control or destroy it. But you're different. You are strong because you can choose love. And that begins with yourself. Every time you forgive yourself for once believing you deserved their hate, you rebuild a part of your inner strength. Every time you choose peace over retaliation, you prove that you hold something they never will, the ability to live authentically, the ability to stand tall without stepping on anyone else. Rise above their hatred. Let them keep their bitterness. Let them live in the darkness they've chosen. But you don't have to stay there with them. You deserve something more. A life where you are not defined by their contempt, but by your resilience, your kindness, your ability to keep going. Understanding their weakness is not a weapon to strike back. It's the light that leads you out of the darkness they tried to trap you in. I want you to think about this. You don't have to prove anything to them. You don't have to make them see that you're stronger, that you're right, that you're better. They're not that important. You are what matters. How you choose to live, how you choose to rise, how you choose to build a life that isn't bound by their weakness. When you do that, you don't just break free from them, you rise above them, not by defeating them, but by becoming the best version of yourself. We've seen what a narcissist's hatred truly is. We've seen how clearly it reveals their weakness. But now, I want to shift the focus. I want to talk about you, about the power that's waiting inside you when you let go of what they tried to place on you. Their weakness isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of your strength. Every time you refuse to mirror their hatred with more hatred, you're not just surviving, you're growing. You're proving that you possess something they never will, the ability to regulate your emotions, the ability to choose a different path, the ability to stand tall without tearing others down. They can't do that. They're trapped in their bitterness, in their helplessness, in their own inner weakness. But you're not. You have the strength to step out of that cycle, to break the chains they tried to bind you with. They've lost the capacity to love themselves, to love others, to love life without controlling or destroying it. That's why they're weak. But you are different. You can love, and it starts with loving yourself. Self-love isn't selfish. It's the foundation of strength. When you love yourself, you don't need their validation. When you love yourself, you don't have to prove anything to them. When you love yourself, you can rise and live a life untouched by their contempt. I challenge you to do this today. Look at yourself, in your mind, in the mirror, in your heart, and say out loud, I am not their target. I am stronger than they ever imagined. Feel the power in those words. They're not just words, they're truth. You've made it through the days they tried to break you. You stood when they wanted you to fall. You survived the words, the actions, the attempts to destroy you. That's not weakness. That's strength. Real, undeniable strength. They will never understand. Their weakness is an invitation, not for you to stoop to their level, not for you to become like them, but for you to rise above. They chose hatred because it's all they have. A choice rooted in fear, in helplessness, in emptiness. But you have more than that. You can choose strength. The strength to heal, the strength to live authentically, the strength to build a life that isn't defined by their contempt. When you do that, you don't just live, you win. Not by defeating them, but by becoming the best version of yourself. Think about this. Every step you take away from them is a step closer to yourself. Every time you choose peace over resentment, you affirm your strength. Every day you live without needing their approval is a day you prove that you don't need them, that you never did. Their weakness is their burden, but your strength, that's your story. And it's a story worth living. By now we've stripped away the illusion surrounding the narcissist. We've seen that their hatred is not a sign of power, but a symptom of powerlessness. We've uncovered the truth. They can't stand tall unless they're standing on someone else. And we've explored how that understanding can become your personal power. But I want to take you one step further, one decisive step, where you not only understand them, but take back full control of your life because of that truth. This isn't a story about how weak they are. It's a story about how strong you become once you see through them. Imagine standing in front of a door that leads to a life no longer ruled by their hatred. Maybe in the past you believed they held the key, that they got to decide when you were free, when you could live without the weight of their contempt. But the truth is, they never had the key. Once you understand that their hatred is born from their insecurity and fear, you realize the key has always been in your hands. They never had the power to keep you locked in. You decide whether that door opens. A narcissist wants you to believe they're the center of the world, that everything revolves around them, that your life must be a reaction to theirs, that your self-worth depends on their opinion. But once you realize they need someone to blame, you begin to see that they are not the center at all. They're a side note, a faint noise in the vastness of your life. They don't have the power to shape your reality. All they can do is scream and hope you're still listening. But you don't have to listen anymore. You can silence them, not with arguments or revenge, but by focusing on what truly matters. You. Here's a simple but powerful truth. When you see through them, you're no longer trapped in their script. They want you to play the victim, the wounded one, the one begging for approval. But you are not a character in their play. You are the author of your own story, and you get to write a new script, one where you are not defined by what they think, say, or do. They don't get to decide that, you do. Let's look at it practically. They can't control you unless you give them that control. Maybe in the past you handed it over without realizing it. Maybe you responded to their hate with fear, with anger, with a desperate need to be accepted. But when you understand that their hatred isn't about you, it's about their inability to face themselves, you can stop giving them power. You can reclaim it, piece by piece, every time you decide they no longer get to shape how you feel about yourself, how you live, or how you move forwards. Ask yourself this: why should you live to their rhythm? Why should you keep dancing to the tune they play, a tune of chaos, bitterness, and emptiness? When you see them clearly, you realize you don't have to. They don't have the power to make you, unless you choose to stay on that dance floor. But you can walk off. You can choose your own rhythm, one of peace, confidence, and growth. They can't do that. They're stuck in a loop of their own making. But you can change the music. Here's what I want you to remember. You don't need their permission to live your life. They want you to think you do, to wait for them to release you, to change, to finally set you free. But that's an illusion. When you understand that their power only exists through what you give them, you realize you don't have to wait for anything. You can begin right now, today, in this moment, to live a life untouched by their hatred. Tell yourself this: I don't need them. I don't need their hatred to define me. I don't need their contempt to drive me. When you say those words, you're not just rejecting them, you're affirming yourself. You're declaring that you are in control, not them. They may continue to live in their small, suffocating world, but you don't have to be there with them. You can choose a larger world, one where you chart the course, where you write your own future. A narcissist hatred is not strength, it's their weakness, their confession of helplessness, the undeniable proof that they cannot stand tall without tearing others down. But more importantly, we've talked about you, about the strength you carry, about your ability to step out of their shadow and live a life that isn't bound by their contempt. They can keep their hatred. That's their choice, their prison, their tragic story. But you don't have to stay there with them. You can choose a different path, a path of strength, of kindness, of truth. You don't need to prove anything to them. You don't need to make them see that you're stronger, that you're right, that you're better. They're not that important. You are. What matters is how you choose to live, how you choose to rise, how you choose to write your own story. So rise, right now, right here in this moment. Don't let their hatred be your final chapter. Let your strength, your kindness, your truth be the last word. You don't have to carry the burden of their weakness. You can release it, walk forward, and live a life they will never be able to touch. I believe in you. I believe you're stronger than the lies they told you, stronger than their attempts to break you, stronger than even what you once believed about yourself. You survived them, and that is no small thing. That is proof that you have the strength not just to endure, but to grow, not just to rise, but to rise higher than ever before.